Hi, and welcome to Mondays with Marlo. Well, you've been asking for him to come back, and he's here. The great Deepak Chopra is here today. We've got tons of questions for you, Deepak.
Sure.
Everybody in our community wants to know how you live your life so peacefully and calmly and with this less tension than most of us. So we want all your wisdom about how to live life better, and we need your tips. We love tips. I think I told you that. So this first one is from Florence, and she's right there. Hi, Florence. What's the single most important thing you can do to alleviate stress?
Well, first of all, recognize that stress is not in the environment, it's not in you, it's how you handle yourself in whatever situation you're in. So learning to deal with stress is like surfing. If you're prepared, every wave is joyful. If you're not prepared, every wave is disaster. Here are some things you can do. Laughter, watching comedies, exercise, good sleep, meditation, imagination, visualization, massage, sex.
Wow, that sounds like a great life.
It's my life.
That's your life. That's wonderful. That's great tips. Great tips. This is from Michelle. What's the most common thing that prevents people from attaining true happiness and peace?
The most common thing that prevents people from attaining happiness and peace is that they think there's something out there that will bring them happiness. Happiness is our original state. If you're happy to begin with, then you'll be successful, you'll be healthy, you'll have good relationships, and you'll make the right choices. And to be happy, you have to make other people happy. That's the easiest thing you can do.
That's interesting that you say it's our natural state because children are so happy.
Yeah, they're full of wonder and happiness.
Yeah, they wake up, they can't wait for the new day to start.
I think joy is a better word than happiness, because joy is natural.
And it's active, isn't
Yes.
it? Yeah, that's great. This is from Kathy. What is an eye-opening experience that you've had?
Every time I open my eyes, I'm struck with wonder at what I see. To be perpetually surprised at existence is the most eye-opening experience you can have.
Oh, that's great. I wish we could all be like that. No wonder you write all these wonderful books. Oh, this is your new book, Spiritual Solutions.
Correct.
I can't wait to read it, and we're going to talk a lot about it.
Sure.
I'm very excited to read that. Bill Causey wants to know, how do you remain positive in a world that's so negative? Do you have any tips for remaining positive in this negative world?
I think it's better to be an observer rather than to always try to be positive, because if you're trying to be positive all the time, you create turbulence in your mind, and that's as bad as having negativity. There's nothing more exasperating than someone who's always positive no matter what the situation is. So be natural, observe your positivity and negativity, and as you observe it, your behavior will change and you'll start to see opportunities where other people are seeing problems.
So you're saying observe it rather than fall into it. Is that it?
Yeah, observe it. The highest form of human intelligence is the ability to observe yourself in the midst of all that's going on, and you observe without judgment. Just be a silent witness.
This is from Tom. What visuals inspire you?
The most inspiring visuals for me are nature, looking at something like the Grand Canyon, or looking at a starlit sky at night, or looking at a baby's face, or looking at children playing.
This is from Krista. What is your definition of fearless? And what's the most fearless thing you've ever done?
Fear comes from the ego and is a sign of feeling separate from what exists. In truth, there is no separation. So we're all part of a single energy field. Right now, the people who are watching us, you and me, and this table and the computer, it's one single energy field. And when you realize that, then there is only love. So the best way to conquer fear is to ask yourself if your intentions are motivated by love. And if they are, then you won't feel fearless. Then you will feel fearless.
Have you felt, I mean, is there something you can tell us that was the most fearless thing? Obviously, you've had to have had fear in order to get past it and feel fearless. Do you ever feel fear?
I do not feel fear, and it was a process that took some time. And I think the most important experience for me was to be permanently in touch with the idea of impermanence, the fact that the physical body and the ego personality have to die at some point, and that everything is dying as you see it. So death is stalking us right now, and every time you look behind, it's a little closer. When you recognize the impermanence of life, then every moment becomes precious.
It's a nice way to live. No wonder you're so calm. I feel better just having you here.
Well, thank you.
Really, I want a lot of this to rub off on me.
Okay.
Can I sit real close?
Sure.
This is from John Calvert. Oh, Jory Calvert. What do you think about psychics?
Psychics are highly intuitive people who tap into what we call a non-local domain where everything is connected to everything else. So anyone can learn to be psychic if they go beyond the turbulence of their internal dialogues, if they go into the stillness of the mind, beyond the mind, and then ask themselves any question, because the answers are all there within you.
So when people go to psychics, you think that's okay? Is it a good idea to...
Yeah, as long as you go to psychics out of curiosity and not out of fear.
And how do you find what's a really good psychic? I mean, they don't have any accreditation, right? I mean, it's not like they have...
I think the best thing you can do is become one yourself.
I should have known you'd say that. This is from Sharon Howell. How do you just stop worrying when it comes to your children?
It's natural to fear for anxiety. It is natural to fear for your kids, especially if they are in some kind of danger, because then it's a normal instinct to want to protect them. But I think the best way not to worry about kids is to actually surround them with your own lack of anxiety. If you're constantly worried and stressed, then the children will mirror that. But if you're totally easy and relaxed and full of laughter and joy and peace and harmony, then your kids will reflect that too.
Yeah, that's a good tip. That's hard to do, but it's very true. It's true in the whole household. If it's a nervous household or a
And
depressed
even the dogs
household,
are nervous.
yes, right, exactly. Everybody's nervous. This is from somebody called Power Chick. How do you not get affected by other people's negative energy? Do you have any tips for not getting... There's so much negative energy in people. How do you not get affected?
First of all, do not judge energy as negative or positive. Second, stay close to your own center. So anytime you're feeling anxiety, ask who's feeling anxious and go back to the stillness inside you. And third, radiate from yourself peace, harmony, laughter, and love.
Peace, harmony, laughter, and love. Is that in your book? Do you talk about peace, harmony, laughter, and love as a way of living?
I talk about how to expand your consciousness, yes.
That's great. Peace, harmony, laughter, and love. I like that. That's a good tip. This is from Rose. You seem so calm and centered all the time. Do you have 3 tips for the rest of us to get through life in a calmer way?
Well, here's the mantra. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Passed down through the generations.
Yeah, just say, easy come, easy go.
Take it easy.
Nothing is permanent.
Do you also say breathe?
Yeah, breathe is good. Actually, anytime you feel stressed, just stop there and then. Observe your breath, take a few deep breaths, and don't react. Just watch your reaction to react. And finally, when you do respond, smile.
And yeah, that breathing really helps. To just, because
Well,
sometimes you
breathing
feel
is
you're holding your breath.
The breathing is the interface between our spirit and our body. So breath is literally the breath of life. And when you're in touch with it, then you're in touch with the present moment. So that's good.
And sometimes when you're anxious, you're actually holding your breath.
Yeah,
You
anxious
stop
people
breathing.
have, they gasp literally.
Yes.
And their breathing is irregular and it's shallow. And sometimes, yes, you hold your breath.
Hold your breath.
And that's not good because you start to suffocate them.
Right. This is from Lorraine in Cleveland. A lot of middle-aged people feel stressed and time-starved with work and family obligations. You've said if you're constantly running out of time, then your biological clock speeds up and then you do run out of time with a heart attack or other illnesses. How would you advise people to slow down?
Well, the best way to slow down is to be in the present moment. And the best way to be in the present moment is to recognize that you're not in the moment. When you recognize the fact that you're distracted, then at that moment you bring yourself to what is called presence. Presence of what? Presence of your own spirit. So presence is when you do not have the luxury of being distracted. You're aware. And you can be aware of your breath, or you can be aware of the sensations in your body, or you can be aware of space between objects, or you can be aware of the center inside you, which is the space between your thoughts. So the space between thoughts, the space between objects, the space between movement, the space between intention, and the space between breath are the same space, and they are the window, the corridor, the transformational vortex to the infinite being which you are.
That is great. And you'll have less heart attacks and less illnesses if you can do that.
That's true.
This is from Stan. I'm wondering, have you ever known people that did have heart problems and learned to change their way of dealing with stress or dealing with this constant feeling of being time starved? Because I think time starved
there are many studies now that show that coronary artery disease can be reversed, and that is done through many things. So first of all, you're right, slow down your experience of time, but also by changing your diet, by learning to manage stress, by improving the quality of your relationships in the direction of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, and by exercise and by good sleep. The combination of all these can in fact reverse coronary artery disease.
Yeah. This is from Stan. He says, you've said that our self-esteem determines how we age. Can you explain that?
Self-esteem is not the same as self-image. So self-image is what other people think of you and you believe it. So when you have true self-esteem, then you're fearless, you feel beneath no one, you're immune to criticism, even though you're responsive to feedback. And it comes from asking deeper questions like, who am I, what do I want, what's my purpose, what's my contribution, what are the qualities of relationships that I enjoy, how do I express my unique talents. When you have true self-esteem, then that is reflected in all that you do, in your environment, in your personal relationships, in your social interactions, and everything that happens around you.
So self-esteem, in your opinion, has a lot to do with your own feeling of purpose and worth and how you relate to others, right?
Yeah, it comes from knowing your true self.
Knowing your true self. And then you said it determines how we age. So you...
Well, because your ego living in fear moves your biological clock through the response of fear,
right,
which is contracted awareness. I do talk about it in this book,
You do?
Spiritual Solutions, yes.
Is that what we call a spiritual solution?
Yes, but every problem in the world has a spiritual solution, which means expanding your awareness to what is.
I can't wait to read this. This is from Matt Cray. What is the biggest surprise you've had in your spiritual journey since setting out upon it years ago as a young doctor?
The biggest surprise that I had in my spiritual journey was that it was actually the most natural journey there was. Anything less than that is a compromise.
Wow. This is from Pauline Whitfield. What is the best way to get rid of feelings of shame? Oh, honestly, Deepak, this is such an important question. We get asked this all the time. People are dealing with shame, and shame is such a killer of the spirit. Do a lot of people ask you about this?
Yeah, shame is the result of believing the hypnosis of social conditioning, which is all about judgment. So you have to recognize that any aspect of self-judgment will lead to guilt or shame. And this will surface anytime you feel threatened, anytime you feel that you're not safe. This is part of what we call our shadow self. And the shadow comes out when there is sometimes anonymity, when there are poor conditions of living, when there is poverty, when there is abuse, when there's poor leadership, It's an aspect of ourselves that feels separate. So the way to deal with shame is to forgive everyone, including yourself.
Self-judgment causes shame. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't so much come from the outside.
No, it's the same thing. Outside, inside is all one.
Yes. This is from Mara. Hi, Deepak. My question is about meditation. I've never done it before, but I feel like I would benefit from it. What are 3 tips you can offer to learn how to meditate?
Okay, the first is learn to sit quietly with your eyes closed with no agenda. So just try that for a few days. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sitting quietly with no agenda. The second, once you graduate from there, is that you can focus on your breath during those 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then it gets better after that. You start with questions that you want to reflect on and let them go, and either observe the sensations in your body or your breath, or you repeat a mantra like I am or Om or Aham.
Or take it easy.
Or take it easy.
How often do you, how long do you meditate for? You meditate every day, I'm sure.
I meditate 2 hours every morning, yes, and half an hour every evening.
Oh my goodness. You must sleep like a baby.
I do.
You must if you meditate a half hour. That's fabulous. This is from Pauline H. Any tips on keeping a sex life interesting after 15 years of a monogamous marriage?
Make it a surprise every time you have it. Don't have any expectations. Don't ask yourself, how am I feeling, how am I doing, what am I getting out of it. Sex is a spontaneous experience of life, and it literally demands that you be vulnerable, that you be natural, and that you are in the timeless domain. If you're looking at your watch while having sex, then it's not sex.
And have fun.
Yeah, have fun.
Have fun. Talk
Which
about
is
joy.
natural.
That's a joy. Dolly wants to know, what is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? Wow, you've seen a lot of beautiful things. That must be a hard one.
You know, every experience is beautiful. It just, beauty is not out there. Beauty is in the beholder. So it's how you see things. When you see things without judgment and through the eyes of love, then everything is beautiful.
That's for sure. Now, you might have answered this, but here, this is from Grace. Hi, Grace. Sleep and exercise are obviously important in aging well. Do you have a routine? How do you make sure to get enough sleep? Any tips?
I think sleep and exercise are really important. So the routine is that make sure you spend at least half an hour to 1 hour in exercise. Brisk walking is the best exercise. When I came to your place just now, I walked about 2 miles, and then after we finish, I'll walk another 2 miles. And by the end of the day, I'll actually have walked 10 miles. In a beautiful city like New York, there's no reason to take a taxi or even the subway unless you're going 30 miles or so. So that's part of my routine. As far as sleep is concerned, by the time it comes to sleep, I've had such a fulfilling and joyful and vigorous day that sleep comes automatically.
What time do you go to sleep at night?
I usually go to sleep at 10 p.m., but I can go to sleep anytime I want to. It was part of my training as a doctor.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's right. You could sleep standing up.
Yep.
This is from, and do you get up early?
I get up around 4 o'clock or 4:30, yes.
And then do your 2 hours of meditation?
That's right.
Oh, wow. This is from Terry Breslaw. How does one begin to not own their children's mistakes?
And I think you should own your children's mistakes, because the children are learning their mistakes from you. Then when they're very young. Once they're grown, then of course they should own their own mistakes. But in the beginning, if your children are constantly repeating the same mistakes, ask yourself, what are you doing wrong?
That's a surprising answer. I thought you were going to, well, because it's a great answer.
When your children are very young, they're
Yeah.
an extension of yourself.
Right. That's a great answer. This is from Valerie. In your book, Spiritual Solutions, you list answers to life's greatest challenges. What are some of those challenges? Oh, is that too big a
Well, the
question?
most challenges that people experience are in 4 areas. The first is health. The second is relationships. The third is material success, and the fourth is spirituality. So life's greatest challenges fall in those four areas. And there's a spiritual solution to all of them.
Here we go, right in here, which I'm going to read. I'm so glad it's the 4th of July weekend because I'll have some real time to read the whole book at once. I love answers, and you always give us great answers in your books, which is great. That's why you sell so many books. This is from Barbara Ann Barrett. I've enjoyed his books. Would like to ask, when you have a crisis of faith, what can you do to still stay in touch with God? How do you get your faith back?
Well, first of all, you should learn to separate faith from belief. Belief is a cover-up for insecurity. We only believe in those things that we're not sure about, okay? So you don't have to believe in electricity. It's making this transmission possible, or you don't have to believe in light. You can see because of light. You don't have to believe in gravity. If God is real, then why should you have to believe in God? And the best way to get in touch with God is through your own self. God is your highest instinct to know yourself. So when you have faith in yourself, then you will have faith in God.
That's hard to do, isn't it?
No, it's a willingness to step into the unknown in every moment, because every moment is unknown. Once it's happened, it's already in the past. It's the known. So we pretend to live in the known while constantly navigating the unknown. So just be in touch with reality.
Maybe, whenever I hear the word faith, I was raised as a Catholic, and faith was always about the religion. And maybe that's what this person is talking about too. How do they get that, their teachings back, their belief in the teachings, maybe?
I think it's good not to be too bamboozled by the teachings, because, teachings get outdated.
Yes.
After a while, as we learn more, as we expand our awareness, some of the teachings are not relevant anymore. So if you live in fear of God and loving devotion that comes out of fear, then I wouldn't call that the right teaching.
That's interesting. That's where I was raised. This is from Bo Bell. How does one make sense of such a toxic and political environment that has been created by humans?
The environment, and the political environment in particular, is a reflection of our collective consciousness, which lives in fear, which is trying to control, manipulate. And so the environment we see, particularly in the political sphere, is full of cronyism, corruption, influence peddling, and power mongering. And the only way that will change is as we develop in the direction of more self-awareness. So hopefully that will happen sometime in the future. But you're right. Right now, it's a reflection of who we are, as it always was.
Yeah. This is from Danya. From a spiritual perspective, when do you know it's the right time to leave a relationship? And when do you know it's the right time to enter a new relationship? Is that a spiritual question?
Yeah, I think all relationship is a mirror of your own self. Those that you love are people that reflect qualities that you have but want more of, and those that you dislike reflect qualities that you deny in your own self. So whenever you feel a relationship is toxic, then you have to ask yourself, what is the toxicity I'm bringing to that relationship? So relationship serves as a mirror to our personal growth. When is it time to leave a relationship? When, in all honesty, you have been in a dialogue which is non-confrontational and which is honest. What am I observing? What am I feeling? What's the need here? How do we fulfill each other's needs? If your partner or whoever you're in relationship with is willing to explore that in a non-violent way, then you should stay with it. If they're not, then move out.
This is from Brooklyn Steele. How do you personally process upset, Deepak? If you don't ever get upset anymore, what is your alternative process? You must get upset, I'm sure.
I don't actually, but for those that do, there is a process. You observe the upset first, you take responsibility for it, you feel it in your body, you label it, you describe it in the first, second and third process, you share it, and then you release it through a ritual, and then you celebrate the release. I write about that.
Do you?
Yeah.
In Spiritual Solutions?
Yes.
And what does that come under? What? How will we find that in the book?
You'll find it all over the place. It's not spelled out in those 7 ways
Right.
Constantly,
Right.
but every upset requires that 7-step process. Take responsibility, observe, label, describe, share, release.
Great. This is from Tori Florence. Can you please define coach? What does it mean to coach someone? Do you use the word coach a lot?
I don't. I think the best way to coach someone is through example, not through lecturing.
Right.
I mean, even when I write books, it's not because I think they're going to change someone. They're only going to change someone if they want to change.
Right.
Right.
It's like a little bit of a map.
It's a
People
map,
need
yeah.
maps.
Sure.
This is from Kip. I've been in a slump for a while, but I can't find the motivation to get out and do the things I want to do. Do you have any suggestions for finding the willpower to get the gears moving? I know once I start, I'll gain momentum. It's just that first push, I can't seem to just get going.
The best way to get going is through exercise. So make a decision that tomorrow morning when you wake up, you're going to take a long walk or go for a run or a swim or something, or take a yoga lesson or practice some breathing exercises. Once you get physically moving, then the rest will start to come as well.
I think that's very true, now that I think of it. I know that when I'm feeling down, I run in the park, and when I'm running in the park, all of a sudden everything feels better.
Yeah, exercise is a good way to stimulate your mind.
All that oxygen or something. This is from Diana. If through the process of meditation we find a solution to a problem that is at odds with one's faith, Christianity, Judaism, etc., how can we reconcile the two?
You shouldn't worry about that, all religion, to tell you the truth, is cultural mythology. It was relevant when it was invented, and then it doesn't stay all the time relevant all the time for all situations. So trusting your own inner being is much more important than following scripture, and not judging is much more important. So if you live in a glass church, don't throw scripture around.
Right. Well, a lot of us the Catholics anyway, are born with original sin. So we're in shame and blame from the minute we're born. So
it's the institutionalization of guilt and shame.
Right, it really is.
Stay away from it.
Yes. This is from Felicia. How does one know what is wasted energy versus meaningful experience? Do you call it all meaningful experience to mask our poor decision making?
You should ask yourself, if I make this choice, will it lead to joy in me and those who are affected by the choice? When the answer will be obvious. If your body feels good at that time and you ask the question, then go ahead and make it.
This is from Maggie D. How do you rise above physical pain? Now that's interesting, because you told me today you broke your toe and you still walked here.
I broke my toe because of a lack of awareness. I was teaching at Kellogg Business School. In the middle of the night, I got up and I didn't switch on the light, and I hit my toe quite vigorously against a steel table. So it was a reminder, I should have switched on the light,
right?
Which is the light of awareness.
Right.
Now, how do I go beyond it? I ignore it. If you put your attention on something, it only gets aggravated. I ignore the idea of pain, not the feeling of pain. If you feel the pain, really feel the pain, without evaluating it, it'll start to dissipate. So don't ignore the pain itself, ignore the idea of pain. Two different things. The idea is in the mind, the feeling is in the body.
You walked 2 miles with a broken toe today.
With total awareness, and as I did, and also focused on the other foot at times because it felt so good.
Oh, yes.
And the contrast was so
right.
Great, and that's life. Life is contrast.
Duality, right?
Duality.
Duality. I know you have, this is from Mindy, I know you've been talking about Alzheimer's. Is there something people can do at a younger age to prevent Alzheimer's?
This is a good question, and I'm doing a book with my friend Dr. Rudy Tanzi, who's a professor of neuroscience at Harvard University and the director of the genetics lab. I've learned a lot from him. He said you should go to our website, deepakchopra.com, or go to our YouTube channel, the Chopra Well. It's called the Chopra Well, where Rudy and I talk about this. But there are about 3 genes that are deterministic, which means that we don't know how to prevent those people who have those genes.
Right.
And sooner or later we will discover something that will block the activity of those genes.
Right.
But for the rest of us, Alzheimer's is largely preventable if you don't have a deterministic gene. There are other genes that are risk factors, and those risk factors can be minimized by stimulating the mind, by listening to music, by constantly breaking habits, by a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, loving, attentive relationships. The same things that we do to prevent heart disease will also prevent Alzheimer's. So that's a new insight. Diabetes, Alzheimer's, obesity have common risk factors. But I'm not speaking of those 3 or 4 totally deterministic genes, which are not that frequent in the normal population.
Right. And now we're working with genetics to try to find the
gene. Yes, and we will. Dr. Tanzi is going to find the cure.
We do this
He's
at St.
promised,
Jude with the children. We find the gene that caused the cancer, and then we target that gene with a new drug.
Exactly.
This is our last question, and we've run out of time, but I think it's a good one, especially for you. This is from John McDowell. Where do you see human civilization in 100 years? Can you envision an end to warfare, and what would it take to achieve that? It's a big question.
Okay, no, but it's a very important question, and that's why we have our YouTube channel, the Chopra Well. We want to create a critical mass of people who can be the change that they want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. That's Mahatma Gandhi's instruction. If we had 100 million people moving in that direction, we would have a peaceful, just, sustainable, and healthy world. And if we don't have that, then we're doomed.
That's right. Do you know, Mother Teresa said something that I read, and she was out with a novitiate, and they were tending to the poor and the sick, and these men who had sores all over them, and she was washing them and cleaning them. And the novitiate said to her, "Oh, Mother, how do you do this? How do you clean these people? They're so dirty and diseased." And Mother Teresa looked at her and she said, "Every one of them is Jesus in a different disguise."
She came from a place of love. Yes.
Isn't that wonderful? In a different disguise. Imagine if we all looked at each other as everybody was God in a different disguise. I just
we're all God in drag.
That's great. Thank you. You're so great. I'm so happy you could come today.
Having me, Marlo.
Bless you.
Thank
Thanks so much for coming to see us and hear us today, and I'll see you next week.